I have had microphone issues lately, so please excuse the text-to-speech. In my Godot game, I have been experimenting with modular building blocks which can be used to make prefabricated structures like this small building. I got this idea from years of using the Forge mode in Halo 3 and Halo Reach, the building level editor. As you can see here, I have several prefabricated structures, such as this staircase which can be duplicated over and over to make a skyscraper stairwell for large maps. I would like to show you how I did this, because it is extremely simple and I believe it will be helpful for your games. Firstly, create a new scene and make a spatial node. Then, add a static body and then collision shape to the static body. Adjust the dimensions to your liking. Since I am doing modular pieces in multiples of 5, I made a 5 by 5 wall. We then add a new mesh instance node, and make it a cube mesh. For some reason, Godot's scale for mesh instances is half of the in-game collision unit, so I need to make the mesh instance 10 by 10 in order to be the same size as the 5 by 5 wall. Next I will add my prototype texture to the mesh. This step is purely cosmetic and optional, but I find it helps to get a better sense of scale for the objects. I add the material from a saved material asset I reuse for all of the blocks. Click on the arrow and select the option to make unique. Then adjust scale and offset until the texture is 5 blocks by 5 blocks or whatever your preferred measurements are. I scale the texture along the short sides of the wall so they only use the gray part of the texture. Don't forget to go into your static body node and select the correct collision layers and masks. If you are unfamiliar, essentially you are telling the game which collision layer the object is in, and which collision layer the object should be detecting. For me, I added the wall to the world layer and told it to detect objects in the player, enemy, projectile, and explosive layers. Your game may differ. Now we will build a simple ramp that the player can traverse. First, create a new scene again. Instead of making a static body node, we will go right ahead and make the mesh instance node. This time we will create a prism mesh. Right here you see we have a prism that is an isosceles triangle. We need to simply change this value right here to 0 in order to turn the isosceles triangle into a right angle triangle. Then we will set our dimensions. Remember what I said earlier about the mesh instance and collision scales being different. For my game, I will need to make this ramp a height of 2 meters in the game's world, so we will put 4 instead. I want it to be 5 meters long, but I will put 10. Once we have our dimensions set, we will click on this button that says Mesh, and we will select this first option to add a tri-mesh collider. This will automatically add a collision shape around the mesh that more or less conforms to the shape of the mesh. As you can see, there is a static body and collision shape automatically added to the node in the scene tree menu. Now all you have left to do is select the proper layer and mask and maybe add a texture, if you are feeling artistic. Congratulations, you now have 2 new pieces of modular building blocks to rapidly build levels in your game. I recommend this approach for simple geometry. Now we will test it out. As you can see, I can traverse the slope of the ramp, and the new objects properly detect my projectiles and explosives due to the proper layer masking. Now to build a prefab. Create a new spatial scene and then instance your newly created assets on the spatial node. Adjust the rotation and translation of each object that you spawn in, until you have built something cool. You can hit Ctrl D in order to copy the selected object. I hold Ctrl while moving the object in order to move it by 1 in-game meter. Once you are satisfied with the structure, you can simply save the scene as a prefab. Name it building number 1 or something like that so you know what it is when you instance it in the level later. Now instance it in the level and place it wherever you like. Happy New Year and thanks for watching.